Okay, in this video, we're going to talk about the reading portion of the SAT test. Now, this is the first subject test that you will get to when you take the SAT. And as you can see right here, it is 65 minutes and you have 52 questions to answer. So that may seem like it's a lot of questions, but it's also a really long amount of time. 65 minutes is, like I said, a long time for reading. And like I said in my last video, 50% is not a bad score on the reading test. That's average. If you take this 52 and divide that by 2, you're at 26 questions, right? So can you get 26 questions right in 65 minutes? The answer should be yes. Now that's for an average score. If you want to get an above average score, yeah, you're going to have to get more questions right in that 65 minutes that we have. Now, the reading test has 5 passages. And we got one here. Let's go to the next page. One here. One here. And we'll come back and talk about this one in a minute. One here. And finally one here. Now you notice as we go through, there are charts and graphs throughout the reading test. Also, each of the passages has a little blurb up here which kind of tells you what the passages are about. So one of the passages will be a fictional story. Another passage will be social science. There may be 1 or 2 of those, and there'll be 1 or 2 natural science passages that talk about a scientific process or a scientific concept. This will tell you what the passage is about. This one says, this passage is from Charlotte Bronte, I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong, the professor, originally published in 1857. Now this is important right here. I'm someone who doesn't like fiction. I'm someone who really doesn't like old fiction. So I see this as a fictional story, and it's written in 1857. I am not going to read this passage first, if at all. It does not matter what order you do these questions in, as long as you make sure you bubble correctly on your answer sheet. So what I would do personally for this reading test is I would skip this passage right now, because I'm going to spend way too much time on this. These questions here are worth the same amount as these questions here. So I would maybe go look at this one and say, this passage is adapted from the Ian King, Can Economics Be Ethical, from 2013. So I might read this one first and answer those questions, because to me this may be more interesting, or I'll have an easier time understanding what's going on while I'm reading it. And this is 1869 women's suffrage. So again, I may not read this one right away. I may wait till the end to do that. One of my coworkers who does SAT prep with me, her strategy is she would read these first. The ones that she does not like, she would read first, because she has more of her mental stamina at that point. So that way she can use her energy up on the hard ones, and then when she gets to one of the easier ones for her, she won't be her being mentally tired won't be as big of an issue, because she would actually enjoy this or find it easier. Now, there's nothing wrong with that strategy at all. I'm someone who wants to get my points first, so I will go to the easy passages for me, or what I think will be an easy passage, and read those passages first and answer those questions first. My coworker, on the other hand, will go to the ones where she knows she will struggle or find less interesting, and she does those first. Like I said, nothing wrong with either one of those strategies. One of the things, and again, here's a paired passage, we'll come back to that. One of the things my students ask me is, should I read the questions first and go to the passage, or should I read the passage all the way through and answer the questions? And honestly, there's really no one right or wrong answer. You will need to try a variety of strategies to see which one works for you. Some people will read straight through and take little notes on the side to kind of summarize what goes on. And then when they answer the questions, if they need to go back and refer, they can. or if they just remember it, then they can answer the question. Let's get to, I want to find, okay, let's just be on here for now. Okay, so I don't like that strategy because as I'm reading through, if I read this whole thing, I tend to forget what goes on. Okay, like I'll get through it and I'll get to the question, and maybe the first paragraph, oh my gosh, the first paragraph, that was all the way back here, and I'm just finished here. Oh, line 19, what? Okay, at least it tells me where to look, and I can answer that question. Okay, what I like to do is I read a paragraph, maybe two, then I go and see if I can answer any questions. So I'll read the first paragraph, and then, oh, okay, I just read this first paragraph. I should have an idea what it's about. Okay, then I'll read the second paragraph. Can I answer any other questions? Oh, the word capture was in line 19. I can answer that question now. Okay, so going back and forth like that, you may think takes a lot of time, and yes, it does take a little bit of time, but here's the thing. I am someone who can't just read straight through and remember everything that goes on. I get sidetracked easily, my mind wanders. So by going back and forth, by reading a paragraph, then answering a question, reading the next paragraph, answering a question, and sometimes you'll read a paragraph and there's no questions to answer from that paragraph, and that's okay. But going back and forth like that, what that does for me is it keeps my mind engaged. It keeps my mind focused so that I'm not having to read everything and then forgetting what it says and have to go back and read it again. I can go back and forth like this and realize what's going on a lot easier. One of the strategies that I do not recommend is the one that you read the question and then go and hunt to find the answer. I used to do that strategy, and I was getting good scores, but I wasn't getting great scores. And what I mean by that is you go to the question, okay, first paragraph, you read the first paragraph, all right? Next question, line 19, okay, you go read line 19. You don't read anything else. Okay, over here, line 65, okay, you go and read line 65. That hunting and pecking doesn't really work on this reading test. This is a reading test. They expect you to read, not hunt and peck. So that is why I do the paragraph, question, paragraph, question, paragraph, question. That way I'm still mentally engaged and I'm not forgetting what goes on while I'm reading the passages. Okay. Now you'll notice that some of the questions ask you to prove the answer to the previous question. Okay, those are called command of evidence questions, and those types of questions will say, hey, prove where you found this, the answer to this previous question. The way you want to handle those questions, and I found one here, I think it was here, yeah. Okay, so 46 and 47 go together. So 46, asks about volcano located, and 47 says, where do you find the answer? Let's say you get to 46 and you're like, I was going back and forth and I have no idea where the answer is to this question. Okay, that's okay. You know that one of these sections has to answer this question up here. So what you can do is read lines 1 through 3, see if it answers this question. Read lines 26 through 28, see if that answers this question. 49 through 54, see if it answers this question. Read lines 61 through 64 to see if it answers this question. So doing that will kind of help you get 46 right, because 47 tells you where the answer to 46 is. So usually you'll get either both these questions right or both of these questions wrong. So if I have a hard time with a question like this and I see down here, where's the evidence? Okay, I look here and say, let me read these lines, these sections, and one of those sections has to answer this question. Okay. The next reading strategy we'll talk about is, that paired passage. Back here, I was saying we would come back to how we'd come back to this. And I have one here that is on both pages now. When you get to the paired passage, You have passage 1, passage 2. What you'll want to do is read passage 1 and then answer all the questions that have to do with passage 1. Now, if you're doing the back and forth strategy, you kind of do this already. But if you're someone who's going to read straight through and take notes, read straight through passage 1, answer questions that have to do with passage 1. Read through passage 2, then answer questions that has to do with passage 2. The reason for that is a lot of times questions will ask about a certain passage. The central claim of passage 2 is that space mining has positive potential, but okay, now the answer according to passage 2 is one of these. But the answer according to passage 1 is also one of these answer choices. So if you read straight through both of these and then you get to 47, 2 of the answers will look right because you've read straight through and you haven't really differentiated between the 2 passages. Okay? And in fact, choice C is the correct answer according to passage 1, not according to passage 2. So you need to be really careful about that. Sorry for the noise on the side. My cat is not liking me making these videos, so I'm trying to kick him out and keep him away. So that's how you should handle these paired passages, is read them one at a time, answer questions, read them again, read the second passage, answer questions. Now some of them will ask you to compare, which point about the resources that will be highly valued in space is implicit in passage 1 and explicit in passage 2. Okay, so that way you're comparing both of them, and there'll usually be 2 to 4 questions about that. Other reading strategies that you'll want to keep in mind is, the charts and graphs strategy. I talked about that in the first video, how to handle those. If you're going to read all the passages here, you should be taking about 13 minutes per passage. Now, if you're not getting a good score, I would slow down. Okay, if you're spending 13 minutes on a passage and you're only getting 3 or 4 right, you're going too fast. You need to slow down. Yes, you will not finish the whole test, and that's fine, because remember, you're going to guess straight down on the questions you don't get to. But if you can take 15 minutes, and this is what I do at my school, is we work anywhere between 15 to 20 minutes on a passage depending on their skill level, on the kid's skill level. So if you can get a passage with an 80% right, so 8 out of 10 questions in 15 minutes, and you can do 4 passages like that, because you get 65 minutes, all right, and 15 times 4 is 60 minutes. So if you can do 4 passages, get 8 right in each of them, you're looking at 36 questions right. 32 questions right. That's over 50%, and that's with you skipping 1 passage altogether. And then you guess straight down the last passage, and you'll maybe get 1 or 2 right, possibly 3. And you're looking at 34, maybe 35 questions right on the reading test. If you're getting below that many right, then maybe you should try that strategy. If you're still not getting 8 out of 10 right when you're spending 15 minutes on a passage, spend more time on it. Maybe 18 to 20 minutes. Because if you spend 20 minutes on a passage, you should get through 3 of them. And if you get 8 questions right on 3 passages, you're getting 24 questions right. And you guess on the last 2 passages, you should get maybe 5 questions right. So you're 24 questions right from reading the passages, and then the 5 questions right from guessing straight down. Remember, these numbers are only true if you guess straight down. You're still looking at over 50%, and you're skipping 2 passages altogether. So again, to summarize, slow down if you're not getting above a 50%. Slow down. Take your time. Make sure you get the correct answers. One of the things that I do with my kids is, they have this mindset of, I'm just going to read. They mark answers, and then they're done, and they say, well, I I'm done. You're giving me 20 minutes, but I'm done. And then they get like 3 questions right. This strategy will not work if that's the way you do things. If you're going to get 20 minutes to do a passage and you want to get 8 or 9 of those 10 questions right, you need to really know where these answers are. So what I tell them to do is say, okay, you're done. You say you're done. You have an extra 8 minutes. Go through the passage and write the number next to each part of, write the number of the question where you found it in the passage. So if you found the answer to number 25 right here, I would ask them to write a 25 there. I'd ask them to write like a 27 here, wherever they found the correct answer, or whatever made them feel that B was a correct answer for number 24. So these are ways to make you kind of more active readers instead of passive readers. Because if you're an active reader, that means you're really paying attention, you're trying to understand what's going on. You're not reading for remembering anything, you're reading to get through the test. So you don't need to remember all this stuff about x-rays and DNA and amino acids, all this stuff. I've read this passage probably 4 or 5 times over the years, and I don't remember anything about it. Yeah, I remember doing the passage, I remember answering the questions, but the actual content in here, I don't remember what it says. I don't remember the difference between adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine. I don't know. And that's okay, because you're not supposed to read for knowledge. You're reading to answer these questions. And that's something that kids struggle with, is every time they're told to read something, they're expected to memorize it or put it in long-term memory. On the SAT, that's not the case. You read it to answer these questions, and then you can forget about all this junk over here. So again, slow down. That is the one thing I always tell my kids, because most of my students are scoring below 50% on reading. And I tell them to slow down. And I say, okay, just spend these 65 minutes on 3 or 4 passages. And the issue that happens is they'll rush through 3 or 4 passages, and there'll be 20, 25 minutes left, and they say, well, you only told me to do 3 or 4 passages. I'm done. And I say, no, that's not what I meant. I meant if you're going to only do 3 or 4 passages, I expect you to spend all 65 minutes on 3 or 4 passages, making sure you get those questions correct. And that might mean writing numbers next to where they found answers. But honestly, if you're watching this video, you're trying to get the best score you can. You're not watching this because someone's forcing you. You're watching this because you want to get a good score. So I don't think you'll have that problem. So for you watching the video, slow down. Maybe you want to write the numbers next to where you found the answers to get you better at active reading. Or going back and forth between paragraphs and passage gets you better at active reading. When you are watching TV, you are pretty much you're passively watching TV. You sit and you watch and you just let stuff come at you. Some people like me, I think about the story and all that other stuff and how everything goes together, but most people don't do that. They just watch to watch. If you're reading, you can't just read to read. You can't just look at the words and say, okay, these are the words. You have to kind of be active and say, what's going on here? And that's, again, why I like going back and forth. Some final strategies to think about is be careful of extreme words, such as never, always, and only. Now, I couldn't really find an example off the top of my head here where they used those words. But anytime you see that, anytime you see the word only, never, and always in answer choices, you need to be completely sure that it is always, you need to be completely sure that your answer is correct. Because I've seen sometimes in tests where the question, or sorry, the answer will say blah, 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 blah will always be true, but the passage will say blah, 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 blah will sometimes be true. So that key, that one word will make the answer completely wrong. So be careful when you see the words never, always, and only. I, in fact, circle them when I see those, because always is not the same thing as most of the time. You know, most of the time, if people study really hard, they get a good score on this test. People who study will always get a good score on the test. See, that's completely different. All the information you need to do the test is in the passage. Right? This stuff about, I'll go back to the science one. Okay, you don't need to know anything about DNA and the structure and all that other stuff. Anything you need to know is in the passages. So don't think, oh, I didn't take chemistry yet. I can't answer these questions, or oh, I failed biology. I can't answer this question, or I didn't pay attention in history. I can't answer this question. Yes, you can. The information is in the passage. And again, the only way to get better is practice, 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 and practice more. You know, I'm a living example of that. I've been teaching test prep for 7 years, and my reading score has gotten a lot better, not because I've gotten smarter, but because I've had to practice, practice, practice with my students, which then made me a better reader. I used to not be able to finish a reading test. Honestly, when I first started, I would skip this first passage altogether and focus on the other 4 passages, and then guess straight down on this one and still get a good score. Now I'm at the point where I can read this passage and get most of these right too. And that's through practice. It's not getting smarter. It's through practice and more practice. Okay? That's all I really have for reading strategies. Oh, okay, let's talk about this one real quick. Where they're trying to make you define a word according to the lines, or according to the passage. You really don't want to think about what you know. So, as used in line 1 and in line 65, directly most nearly means, you may think you know what directly means, and you may say, oh, okay, let me just say with precision, done, because that's what you think it means. Really look at these lines and see if that's the same meaning, because I would say I don't want to say most of the time, but a good percentage of the time, the word is not used in the way we normally use it. So think about that. Don't just assume that you know what the word directly means. Really look back in here and see if it's being used if it's being used the correct way. Yeah, now that should be it for my reading strategies video. I will be doing another one hopefully within the next week. If you have any questions, comments, feedback, please feel free to post those. If I have any other reading strategies that I forgot to tell you, I will type them out in the description, and I might make another video at the end once I realize, you know, I probably left out this reading strategy or this math one or this language and writing one, and I'll probably make a video that will just kind of, you know, fix all the mistakes that I made throughout these videos. So stay tuned to my channel for the next one. Thank you for watching. Bye.